Hey, this is episode number 5 of the Journey Feed podcast.
And there's me and my very English partner. You know, we're a little bit more kind of sedate, thinking, oh my goodness me.
Welcome to the Journey Feed podcast, a place for you to discover the tools and ideas to get you to travel and do more of what you want. And now, your host from somewhere around the world, Edwin Covarrubias.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Journey Feed podcast. I am so excited today because we are going to be finding out about a very exciting opportunity to travel around the world. Did you know that you could go out into the world and stay at a farm and help out, organic farms and growers, help them out with, whatever goes down in a farm, like picking fruit, planting stuff, weeding, cleaning, taking care of animals, a bunch of other things like that, and get your accommodation and food covered? Well, we have Amanda here today to talk to us about WWOOF.net. Now, WWOOF stands for the Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms, and they work on linking volunteers with organic farms and growers. So to find out how this is going to work and how you can get started with this, we're going to jump right into the interview right now with Amanda. Hope you enjoy it. Hey guys, welcome to the Journey Feed podcast. We have another interview here, and based on some questions, we got finally a hold of somebody from WWOOF to clear a lot of these things up that we've been asking around. And I finally got a hold of Amanda, who's been so great in agreeing to do this interview. So Amanda, thank you so much. I believe you're calling from the UK, is that right?
That's right. You're talking to me from a little town called Stroud in the county of Gloucestershire, which is on the western side of England, a long way away from London.
That is great. So tell us a little bit about how you got started with WWOOF and what WWOOF is.
Okay. Well, maybe if I start by explaining what WWOOF is, just to make sure that we're all on the same kind of page, as they say.
Okay.
So WWOOF stands for Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms. And essentially, we're an exchange program, a cultural and educational exchange program, enabling volunteers, people who want to learn about organic growing and farming and sustainable lifestyles, to link up with farmers and growers, and to stay on their farms, learn about what they do, and help out in return for food and accommodation. And we call those woofers volunteers. Sorry, those volunteers woofers even. And I'm sure lots of your listeners have heard about woofing as a great way to travel around the world and eke out your budget. But my journey with WWOOF, gosh, that started about 20 years ago or more now, when I was living in London and wanted to get out of the rat race. And my partner and I went on a permaculture weekend to learn all about permaculture, heard about WWOOF as part of that weekend, and so immediately went and visited a couple of farms in the UK, because we were thinking, was this a way we wanted to live our lives, growing our own food and farming. And from there, the idea mushroomed into travelling around Europe for a year. And when we came back from doing all of our research and meeting all of these amazing farmers who shared their time and their energy and their insights with us, we joined an intentional community back here in England, and shared about an acre of land with about 15 other people, and covered it with raised beds and a polytunnel, and became WWOOF hosts. So I've kind of seen WWOOF from just about every angle you could see it. And when I saw a job advertised in the WWOOF newsletter in the UK to help out with all things international to do with WWOOF, how could I refuse? because I'm passionate about WWOOF and the opportunities and things. So sorry, that was a very long-winded story.
No, it's okay. It's actually what I wanted to hear.
Okay.
And what's one particular travel experience, based on this that's memorable to you?
Well, as I think I mentioned to you, we went woofing all around Europe, and in particular, we went up to Northern Europe and Finland in the summer, because Finland's very cold in the winter. So we headed there in the summer, and I remember we'd only been there a day or two, helping them prepare a field that they'd just reclaimed from a forest. So it was quite heavy work, but we were all doing it together, which was great. Lots of good exercise, getting really hot and sweaty. And at the end of the day, the owner of the farm said, "We must have sauna now," and took us to the family sauna, a wooden cabin by a lake. And the whole family just stripped off completely naked, including, their children and everyone. And there's me and my very English partner. We're a little bit more kind of sedate, thinking, "Oh my goodness me." But we thought, okay, let's do it. And we went in the sauna, and we had the sauna, and then we jumped in this ice cold pool. But I tell you, it was the most amazing experience, a brilliant way to relax. And to the finish, having sauna with strangers and stripping off is completely normal. And it was absolutely fine. And, it was a brilliant example of that immersion in another culture and just kind of going with the flow and being flexible. And, yeah. Amazing things happen.
And is that a normal thing, that you experience in
Well,
WWOOF?
I have to say, I don't, please don't everybody think you're going to be asked to strip off whenever you go woofing. So that was obviously pertinent to that culture and that place, and that's a complete normal thing for them to do at the end of a long day. Just like some other people would crack open a couple of beers, they all went in the sauna together.
I guess to each their own, right? I mean,
Indeed, yeah.
Okay, so you already mentioned a little bit about WWOOF and, what it is, but how did it gain worldwide attention? Like, how did they discover a ton of people would be interested in this type of experience?
Well, WWOOF is a very organic, it's about organic, and it's a very organic thing. It started with Sue Coppard, who was a secretary living and working in London, and she wanted to get out at the weekends and get some fresh air and didn't have much money. So she had this bright idea of contacting a farmer and saying, "Do you need some help?" And she and a couple of friends went down there for the weekend, and that is basically how WWOOF was born. And I think it was an idea whose time had come. I mean, we're talking 45 years ago now. In those days, there was kind of no internet to kind of connect everybody together. Everything was basically done with printed books and pages and letters being sent, by old-fashioned snail mail. But it was obviously an idea whose time had come, and it spread organically. So what happened was, it started as an idea, a concept in the UK, and then people who came to the UK who woofed basically went, "This is a really cool idea." Went back to their own country and set up something similar there. So, there's never been a great grand master plan for disseminating WWOOF around the world. Basically, people went back to their own country and thought this was a really cool thing. So it started spreading to other English-speaking countries like Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the States. But basically from there, it's just grown and grown. And since the internet and that enabling people to network that much more easily, and getting the printed information digitalized so that people can just have an account and log on wherever they are. That's where it in the last 15 years, it's really accelerated.
Yeah, because I mean, everybody has heard of WWOOF. I mean, everybody, Well, and how does a person get started woofing as a traveler?
Well, I think the important thing is for them to first of all think about where in the world it is that they want to go. WWOOF is essentially organised on a national basis. So if you want to WWOOF in Spain, you join WWOOF Spain. If you want to WWOOF in Japan, you join WWOOF Japan. If you want to WWOOF in India, you join WWOOF India. So it's really thinking about where is it I want to go. That's the first question you must ask yourself. Then WWOOF.net is the main website that is your portal to all of the national WWOOF groups. So on there you will find links to all the national WWOOF groups. So I would then go to WWOOF.net, find the link to the country I wanted to visit, and then on that national website, for most national websites, not all of them, it's fair to say, but for the majority, you can usually preview descriptions of the host farms on there. So they won't give you the full contact details, but you can read, the size of the farm, the kinds of things they do, the people who run it, the help they're looking for. And it's really down to you as an individual to look through that list and find something that interests you and that you think, hey, that's the kind of place I'd like to go, the kind of people I'd like to meet. And if you look through the descriptions and find that, yes, there's someone there, at that point you enroll or subscribe as a woofer, create an account, and then you will be able to access the contact details for those farms. And WWOOF is a very independent way of organising your travelling and your travel experience. We in the main office kind of don't get involved a huge amount at all. It's then very much for you as the woofer to contact the host and to start a conversation. And say, hey, I want to come on these dates. Will that work for you? And we really encourage, volunteers to invest some time and energy in developing that relationship, that connection online first, maybe even having a phone call, so that you're absolutely sure that this is the right host for you. And then off you go. On your adventure.
Pretty simple.
Yep.
Are there any fees that we have to think about?
Sure. Different fees for different countries. We have some very small national WWOOF groups. We also have some very large ones. So the fee to join kind of often reflects the size of the organisation and how long they've been established. There are a couple of WWOOF groups out there who actually don't charge you any money to join at all, but typically you're probably paying between I would say $20 and $40 US to join a national WWOOF group. So that's the only fee that you pay to WWOOF directly, but you do need to think about budgeting for your travel costs, of course. So if you're living in Ecuador and you want to go WWOOF in Azerbaijan, then you've got to pay your travel costs to that country yourself. And indeed, once you're in the country, any extra kind of bus fees from airports or wherever.
And in terms of like visas and things like that, people would be going in as tourists or? Okay,
that's something that we really recommend you look at each individual national WWOOF website that you're visiting, because rules and regulations can vary slightly from country to country. So generally you'll find that there's information and advice on visas and immigration. But I must just quickly make a plug for, it's really interesting. The organic movement, it's all about sustainability and living a greener lifestyle. Before you do think about travelling halfway around the world to woof, you can woof in your own backyard as well. And that's how woofing started in the UK. And I'd really encourage people to think about connecting perhaps with farmers and growers in their own backyard just as much as traveling around the world.
Right, that would be a great experience, I think, for people to discover that on their own. Wow.
Indeed, it's a different way of seeing your own. Don't just think about woofing as a way to travel the world. Think about woofing as a way to connect with like-minded people in your own area too.
Right. Wow. Very true.
Yeah.
What are some of the requirements if people, like, is there an age requirement or, things like that?
We really are open to, we're very generous in our joining criteria. Basically, you have to be over 18. That's a legal issue because obviously farms can be dangerous places. There's lots of tools and machinery there. So we can't expect farmers to take kind of legal responsibility for people under the age of 18. So you do have to be aged 18 or over. And basically to be interested in what we're offering. Occasionally people do use WWOOF as a way to explore the world and get food and accommodation, but perhaps aren't quite so passionate about getting out there and sowing their seeds or turning a compost heap or milking the cows, and that's when it's a slight disappointment to the farmer. So they really want people who are interested and passionate about what they're doing. So that's the only thing I'd say. Check inside yourself before you sign up with WWOOF. Is growing food and the farm life something that really appeals to you? And those are the people that we want to start up with WWOOF.
Right. I could imagine showing up and having to do all these things. If you're not interested in that, then you're going to have a really bad time.
You're going to have a bad time, and your host is going to feel like they're asking you to do things that you don't really want to do, and it doesn't make for a good connection or relationship. The best WWOOFs are the ones where you kind of embrace what's going on, go for the experience, and immerse yourself in it.
Right. Are there any particularly popular destinations that people want to go to all the time?
I mean, the main way that we measure WWOOF kind of success is by the number of hosts who sign up in a country and the number of volunteers who sign to go up there. So perhaps it's not that surprising that countries like Australia and the USA and Canada, that are very big countries that have they have a lot of hosts there. So and they're classic countries that everybody wants to go and visit on their gap year or whatever. Australia, Canada, the USA, New Zealand are very popular. But then also in Europe, France and Italy and the UK are very long-term established groups that have a lot of visitors every year as well.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And what are some common lies or misconceptions said about WWOOF?
One of the ones I'd like to kind of challenge straight away is it's only for young people. Sure, you have to be over 18 to WWOOF, but I think the oldest woofer I have met is 76. And I'm certainly seeing a lot of older people come forward. They keep saying, don't they, 60 is the new 50 and 50 is the new 40. There's lots of older people out there with time and energy not wanting to go quietly into retirement. And yes, a lot of our farmers actually welcome the maturity that an older woofer brings. So please don't think just because you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, that woof isn't for you. I think that's one of the ones. And one of the other ones that kind of winds me up a little bit sometimes is occasionally we get people come and say, oh, this is just a modern form of slavery, and actually, you know, why you should be paying these people to do this work. And you know, to those people, I always say, well, woof is, you know, there's no contracts, there's no paperwork. This is a gift of trust and exchange. Which slave have you ever seen who's been able to kind of freely walk off a property or a site of their, you know, whenever they choose? You know, and for a woofer, you know, if ever you turn up at a host or a farm and it's not what you were expecting, it's not going well, you know, we hope that you can kind of find a way to kind of come to some sort of agreement. You know, a lot of woofing is about good communication, communicating with your host if things aren't quite what you expected. But at the end of the day, you are free to go at whatever point you choose. So, you know, I really don't think comparing with woof with slavery is entirely fair. And, you know, the paid work argument, well, an awful lot of our hosts are very small scale, smallholders, just growing fruit and vegetables for themselves, or maybe for people in the local town and village. And they really are living at a kind of subsistence level in many senses. They don't have the cash to pay extra workers, nor do they have the continuity of work. You know, they're just going to want somebody for kind of short-term projects when perhaps they're harvesting or sowing or doing a particular piece of work, mending fences, and then they don't need someone again. They can't offer regular paid employment. So yeah, those are the main ones that I think we have to kind of challenge.
Thank you so much for clearing those up. See, guys, it's not slavery. Just so you guys know.
Absolutely not.
So let's say I am super excited. I'm into organic farming. I know what to, you know, I know what country I want to go to and everything. Well, how should I prepare for that first experience or that adventure?
Well, there's some practical things in terms of what you pack in your suitcase. It's amazing how I do occasionally see somebody turn up to do some farming in their high heels and with their nail varnish on. You know, get some sturdy walking boots. Make sure you've got some clothes that it doesn't matter if they're kind of going to get grubby and dirty, that they're, you know, you've got, especially if you're coming to a cooler country like England or Ireland, you've got your waterproofs. You might want to pack a sleeping bag. I mean, talk to the host about whether they've got linen, that's bed linen stuff. Sometimes a host appreciates if you bring a sleeping bag, but not vital. So I think that's on the practical side. Also, you know, the common sense things about making sure somebody knows where you're going and when, and you're leaving contact information, that kind of thing. But I think then there's the mental side of it, and I've already touched on the need to be flexible, the need to be open-minded about what you might find, who you might meet, and I think if you go with that attitude, the much more positive your experience is going to be.
And like, how would somebody explain woof to, let's say, their parents? Like, is it safe? Like, you're not going to get lost. You're not going to get kidnapped or something like that.
Well, I mean, obviously that's part of what I've just said to you. Make sure you leave contact information behind. So you know, clearly tell parents where you're going, the name of the host. Make sure they are also aware of the contact details for the national woof group that you're part of as well. but emphasize to them that, this is about a learning experience. It's a cultural, educational exchange where potentially you're going to be learning new life skills. I mean, what's more important than being able to grow food to feed yourself? So I think that's one that can sell it to parents quite well.
Yeah, wow. Well, Woof sounds really interesting. It's actually one of the first times I find out so many details about it. And I've been asked a lot of questions too from readers. Maybe we'll get right into them right now. I have a question from Natalie, which is asking, how do you verify that these farms are certified organic?
Well, that's a very interesting question, Natalie, because in actual fact, we don't require farms to be certified organic. I think, as I mentioned to you a moment ago, quite a lot of our hosts are very small-scale producers, and the certification process can be quite expensive. So we don't think it's fair to ban somebody from being a host just because they haven't gone through that process. So we do ask hosts to sign a declaration that they are farming organically, that they're not using chemicals, pesticides, fertilizers. And we operate within the world of WWOOF on trust quite a lot. However, of course, once a woofer visits a farm and sees what's going on, we operate a feedback process with a number of our national WWOOF groups. All WWOOF groups certainly have a complaints procedure. And if a woofer arrives on a farm and sees practices that aren't in keeping with organic growing and lifestyle, then we sincerely hope we'll hear from them, and that woofer will alert the main office, and then obviously we will have a conversation with that host. And this is generally how WWOOF works, because of the size of some of the countries that we're operating in, and because we do try to keep our costs to a minimum. And we very much view ourselves as a sort of shoestring organisation, trying to be accessible to everyone as much as we possibly can by keeping costs to a minimum. We do rely on feedback from our members, not only about what hosts are doing, but what woofers are doing as well. And if people aren't following the rules, being kind of the standard that we would expect, we will have a conversation, and if we don't see change or improvement, ultimately we will cancel memberships.
Oh, well, that's a really good way to go about it, to base it on trust. I like that. It's cool. I have a question here from Ornella. She asks, theoretically, a person could go woofing forever, right? Has anyone done that?
Indeed, we call them career woofers. There are people out there who have turned this into the way they live their lives. And as long as you've got a little bit of money to kind of eke out in between hosts and get from one host to another, or maybe make up with a little paid work in between, absolutely, there are people who use this as a way to live. Your membership of any national WWOOF group lasts for 12 months. You can visit as many hosts as you like during that 12 months. So, you just renew once a year, or renew or join a different WWOOF group, and off you go. I think the best one I know of one person who arrived at a host in Ireland and actually stayed with that one host on a woofing basis for 15 years.
Wow, 15 years.
Yeah. He was a very, very special case. Yeah.
Well, that's one way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Here's another question from John. What are some of the places where traditionally people do not want to go?
Are there any that I think there's always someone out there who wants to go to some of the more exotic, out of the way locations, the more intrepid traveller. So I think, we've got a lot of national WWOOF groups in Africa, places like Tanzania and Togo. Those are ones that for some travellers are a little bit more challenging perhaps. And some of the Eastern European countries, like Moldova and Serbia, Lithuania, are coming on in terms of their organic farming and agriculture, but aren't perhaps the first place people think of to go and visit. So some of the Eastern European countries as well. So get out there.
Are there any hosts out there that complain? Maybe they say that they don't get any woofers?
I think there are always hosts who attract more woofers than some others, and that comes down to how well they describe themselves. I think invariably in this digital age, if you're a host who's put lots of photos of your farm up there, and if you've got a kind of chatty, nice profile, of course they always attract more woofers. So that's always my hot tip to a host that's complaining they're not getting enough.
Wow. Well, thanks so much for telling us about WWOOF. I really appreciate this, Amanda. Thank you so much. And yeah, are there any places here in Ecuador for me to go check out?
There is a national WWOOF group in Ecuador. So do just type WWOOF Ecuador into Google and you'll go straight to their website and you can start looking. Not an expert on WWOOF Ecuador myself, but maybe you could become our in-house Ecuador commentator in
Awesome. Yes. And if people want to get in touch and learn more about WWOOF, where can they contact you, or where can they contact, to find more information?
So really your first port of call is woof.net, which is spelled WWOOF. So 2 W's, 2 O's, F.net. That's the main website, and there is a contact button on there, and you can send messages using that button and they'll get straight to me.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you so much, Amanda. You provided so much valuable information for us about WWOOF. I really appreciate this. Wow.
Great. Get out there, get woofing, start an adventure today.
All right, guys, you heard her. Get started today. Thanks, Amanda.
Okay, my pleasure.
So there you have it, guys. I hope you learned a lot about WWOOF and what it is. If you want to find out more, you can go to woof.net. That is WWOOF.net. And if you have any questions about information and links that were shared on this episode, you can find them directly on the show notes on journeyfeed.com/episode 5. That's all one word and the number 5. And if you have any questions for me, you can find me on Twitter at Edwin Cove. That's EDWINCOV. And if you have any questions, any comments, anything, you can find me directly on Facebook as well on facebook.com/journeyfeed. So again, thank you so much for listening in, and I will see you next time. Thanks.